All right, Paige, thanks for sitting down with me. I'd like to start by grounding this discussion in who you are and what you're seeing. So, you're a dating coach and you spend your days listening closely to what's happening out there. And it's not just the stories that people are telling, but some of the patterns underneath that. Before we get into that, I want to set the context. You've lived through divorce, single parenting, solo motherhood. So you've done more than just kind of see this on the surface. You've really lived it. So let's start with this. What are the real challenges in modern dating right now?
I mean, all of them. Here's what I see, I think, and you kind of hit the nail on the head of like looking for the patterns. And I spend a little bit of time on Threads, which is fun for me to kind of watch, people posting or, Facebook, some of the social sites. And it seems like the patterns are the same. Disappointment with the apps, disappointment with the lack of connection, disappointment with the lack of follow through, not knowing what works anymore, what doesn't work. I think yesterday or the day before, I saw a guy had posted, he goes, I haven't been on a date since 2004. So he's looking for advice, which I think was amazing. How do women feel about flowers on a first date? And I had responded. There was, a lot of responses, but I think one thing to keep in mind is that it's women are not a one size fits all. Number one, and then what used to pass for dating or the ways of dating, and I say in the olden days. That might have been 20 years ago, it could have been 30 years, it could have been when our parents were getting married, that used to be what it was. Is like I got her flowers, he opened the door, he took me to a nice dinner, and I just don't think that's how it works anymore. And I don't think that's how it should work. I kind of like commented back and I was like, women aren't working for looking for flowers. We're looking for like emotional maturity and like doing what you say you're gonna do and like paying attention and like being connected. So I do think there we are in a I think we're in just a shift overall of like all of it. We've had our run with the apps. People are getting tired of the apps. We want to meet in person, but then meeting in person, it's still, a lot of fits and starts. And so I think a lot of people want to date and to be partnered, but I think a lot of people are frustrated with the process, men and women.
Well, you said women want a deeper emotional connection, or they want to feel that emotional connection. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we want now. Back again when I was 25 instead of being 40 or 50, you wanted a good looking man or somebody who's going to earn a lot of money or sort of take care of you in that way of like, a house or a home or, financially. But, women now are out out graduating men in universities. We have our own jobs, we have our own careers. So, the thing that I see and hear a lot of women missing is just that emotional intelligence, emotional maturity, emotional connection. And, I don't think you get that necessarily on a first meetup. You get signs of it, or I think we get a lot of signs of not that. So, we have to just kind of keep moving forward. But, the days of men just sort of showing up and expecting to be liked, I think are dwindling. You have to really like bring something to the table and bring something that I can't provide for myself. What do you think?
I what I'm seeing is, well, what I'm feeling, because I'm not dating. I'm with my partner for a long time now. And my interest in this is in dating is it seems like the relationship between men and women have changed, and I think you nailed it when you said women can buy their own houses now. They're out graduating men, they're out earning men in some cases, and so that doesn't that the having a man buy you something doesn't play into that anymore. It doesn't enter the equation anymore. So what's the next step? And that's that emotional connection that you were describing. So I think our points of view are very aligned in that aspect. And what I'm wondering is, are men aware of that?
I guess I'd be curious what your thoughts are on that. Again, as I just sort of scroll, the socials, which is, I'm in a couple of dating groups on Facebook, or just looking at threads, or just talking to people, talking to clients. I think some men are aware of it, and those are the ones that draw my attention. But, there's a lot of men who aren't, or who are hesitant or resistant to do the work or go to therapy or self reflect. I mean, you work with men who are getting divorced. When I was dating, so I got married later, got divorced, started, I've been out with so many men. I don't do it anymore, but I've been out with a ton of men that are like newly divorced, or like I was their first date in 20 years. But, I'd go out with some of these guys, and I'd be like, well, what's the Reader's Digest version for us old people of like what happened in your divorce? As we're talking, well, my wife was an alcoholic, and she cheated on me with my best friend, and da 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 da. And I'd be like, oh, that sounds terrible. Have you have you gone to therapy or done any counseling on that? No, no, I'm fine. They would say, like, that's happened to me. I'm like, excuse me, sir. No, you're not fine by any measure. And so related, I think a lot of men and some women, more men in my vantage point, mistake or substitute going to the gym and going for a hike or doing some sort of activity. They consider that it's good for, it's therapy, it's self-care, it's whatever. And I'm like, yes, that's helpful, but that doesn't solve like the deep-seated issue of your wife of 20 years like cheating on you with your best friend. Like, there's, you know what I'm saying? So
I completely agree. It's exercise. Exercise got me through my divorce. It saved my life probably. It was like I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and be angry. And sometimes I would just go to the gym and work out at 3:30 just for the sake of working out and having something to do with my time. But and it gave me somewhere for that energy to go. But I don't know that there's, like I said before, and I think you said it too, that I don't know that there's a lot of awareness around that emotional intelligence. So that's a great starting point, I think, for as you're moving through a divorce or dating later in life.
listen, if you're a man and you want to find a partner, this is the way. It's not the flowers. It's not where you went dancing. It's not where you went to school. It is absolutely this. And, I've said for a long time, again, anecdotally speaking, just from like the people that I know, which is a lot of people, almost every single woman I know, loosely, closely, acquaintance, online, Facebook friend, 13 people removed, almost every woman I know is on a perhaps lifelong or ongoing, path of self improvement, path of self discovery, podcasts, books, journals, therapy, coaching, meditation, yoga. And a lot of men aren't. And it, the difference not only in, I mean, I think this is in that article that we talked about that I shared from the New York Times. It's like now not only do we have educational discrepancies or earning discrepancies or some of that stuff, but if the emotional difference is too big, I just have said that to people before too. I'm like, it seems like sometimes there's just not enough, as many men on my level. And I don't mean on my level in any sense other than emotional maturity, like, I don't know. So,
Well, let's talk about that New York Times piece. So the title of it was, "Where have you gone? Please come back." And the subtitle was, "So many men have retreated from intimacy, hiding behind firewalls, filtered and curtained personas, dabbling and scrolling. We miss you."
mm,
Is that what so that's what we're talking about here, right?
I think it's what we're talking about. That article, as I recall, it was a couple weeks ago, I think, that I shared that. But the woman who shared that and wrote it even said, I don't even see men out. Like, if you go to a restaurant and you look around, more so you'll see women with friends, groups of women, and there's fewer and fewer men engaging socially with each other, with partners, and so the retreat into maybe just safety or aloneness or less connectedness, I think, is having effects for everybody, not just in dating. Do you think so as well?
Yeah. I Emotional intelligence is not just for dating 100%. I mean, it applies at work, and it's shocking how many managers I've had in the past. If you're one of my past managers, listen up to this. I find a lot of managers don't have that emotional, especially in tech, don't have emotional intelligence. And they're just pushing this almost productivity over everything else and not recognizing that they're hiring a human being. And if you want to get the best out of a human being, you have to treat them like a human being.
Yeah, and it's the human being, not the human doing.
Yes, very well said. To get back to the New York Times article, why do you think that men are just checking out?
Well, I mean, again, from maybe the article or just from what I've seen, read, absorbed socially, I think it's easier for a lot of us to check out. I mean, I've check out sometimes too because I've got my kids, I've got my podcasts, I've got my books. It's sort of comfortable and it's easier and, with obviously all the access to online sexual stimulation and visual stimulation, you don't have to do much, right, to get a feeling of connectedness, or to maybe imagine that you are getting connected, but those aren't real connections, right, because they don't connect back. And I don't know what the overall answer is, but I think sort of this fear of rejection, or it's like I just don't want to, or I don't know how to. I don't know exactly the numbers, but it's, God, if I were hazarding a guess, I mean, I don't even know what the numbers are. Somebody should look it up, but that's like 25 or 30% of like men under the age of 25 have like never asked a girl out on a date. Like, can you imagine? So, and I could be a little off on the number. Maybe it's higher, but it's like this is so different than all the other generations previously, right? You would, I don't know, like the other earlier generations, like meet at a dance or meet at the sock hop or meet at the soda fountain. I mean, dating was like the thing you wanted to do. And, maybe for younger folks too, like COVID, maybe, I don't know. We're just in a different space, I think. And I don't know if men realize that they're even not having those connections. I mean, I've heard from some male friends and colleagues that this is, again, it's not just a dating problem, it's a men don't, seek out or retain friendships in the way that women do, and sort of that social support circle. So I don't know. What were your thoughts? You were intrigued by the article, and
I have a working theory, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You said it earlier, women don't need men in the same way anymore. And it seems like a lot of women are from what I see on social media, they're resenting men. There's this level of resentment because they don't necessarily feel safe around men. And it seems like women are calling men forward. I'm generalizing here again, and I'm sorry for doing that. Women are calling men forward in the way you're describing to bring that emotional maturity or to develop that emotional maturity. And I think men are like, oh, what to do. I don't know that men know how to step forward into that role. I think there's a small growing number of men who are learning that, but they're learning it by going through a miserable divorce and then doing the work afterwards, or some sort of challenge and then listening to what that's calling forward in them. But I don't know that a lot of men are aware of what to do next.
I think if I could piggyback on that, I don't think a lot of men know what next even is. And if you don't know what the thing is that you're trying to be or become or accomplish, it's probably especially hard to know why you want to have it. So it's one thing for you or for me or for, somebody to say, we going through a divorce, you got to go to therapy, but like for what? Right? And if it's a mysterious, ambiguous thing that you don't understand, like what's on the other side, I get it. Like I can imagine it's a harder, step to take. Maybe it's not the same as going basketball Monday night, 10 guys, gymnasium, 7 p.m., scores, game over, done. Like therapy is like what do you get on the other side? And it's a little bit of the thing that maybe you have to believe it before you see it. I kind of am thinking as I'm talking about this in the same way that a dating coach or a therapist or somebody might, just somebody on the internet might say, you got to love yourself before you love somebody else. And I think I fall on the side of, be working on your, we don't all have to be perfect. We're never fully evolved, but I can tell you from my own experience and from the people that I've worked with that the more you know and love yourself, the people on the other side are going to be way better. You don't put up with the bullshit as much, and you just your filter for finding good people to be with gets a lot stronger. But it's hard to kind of, again, I think sometimes for people, men or women, to know, like, I want to get over there, but I don't know what's in the messy middle between here and there, and therefore I'm just going to keep going to basketball on Monday nights and golf on Saturdays and gaming or whatever guys do. I don't know.
For guys too. I I like that. And one of the one of the pieces of work I found in response to that New York Times article is some men saying confused. And before I give that full quote, actually never mind. They say they're confused. They're told to be open, but they're also expected to be strong. And they want to connect, but they don't want to get it wrong. Brene Brown has a short story of when she first started doing her work on vulnerability. A man came up to her and said, it's nice that you're talking about women in vulnerability, but why don't you talk about men? And she says, well, I don't study men. And he said, well, that's convenient. And she went, what? And he said, see those women over there? That's my wife and my two daughters. And he said, they are the hardest on me than any of the coaches, bosses, whatever, teachers in my life. And he said, they would rather me die on my horse than to be seen as vulnerable. So I wonder if that's one of those old, outdated beliefs that need to be let go, in order for that balance to happen between men and women before that next stage that we're kind of skirting around.
I think it
I
might
realize
be
that's a bit of a sloppy question. I'm sorry for it.
yeah, well, I just thinking, I think it's like a belief without evidence because as soon as you said vulnerable and then the next sentence you said was men want to be strong, in my view, men who are vulnerable are strong. It's easy to take the easy way out. Like, this is what they're getting wrong. And I just, I think a lot of women would agree with me on that. The willingness to be open, the willingness to be seen or heard, or like to see your partner, to make them feel valued. This is what we want. Like, this is what we're asking for. This is why a lot of women leave marriages. I mean, most marriages are initiated by women because we're just tired of not being seen or heard or valued. Um, it's exhausting. It is exhausting. I shared something, a little segue. I'm divorced from a very nice man who's an amazing father, who's an amazing good person. I did not find him to be an amazing partner. And we have been, I mean, I've known him for like 17 years, and we've now been divorced for like 7 or 8. And it's the same stuff even now. Like, we get along most of the time, we co parent really well, but he just talks past me a lot of the times. Like, I'll ask a question. What was it? I mean, there was just like 3 in a row the other day. Like, just as simple as, like, when are you coming home? And he just answers with, like, the soccer ball is pink. I'm like, that doesn't, I can't, like, it's so exhausting to, like, have to maneuver this stuff all the time. And I think that's why a lot of women are just, like, checking out because we cannot continue to do, the invisible labor that we talk about at home, all the cleaning, the laundry, the birthday parties, how many toilet paper rolls do we have left, the groceries, and all of the emotional labor. Like, you gotta get in there, guys. Like, you gotta do something. And again, just expanding a little further as I'm thinking about this, I think for a long time, boys will be boys, women will be women, women have their girlfriends. That's who we get our emotional connections from, historically, right? Stereotypically. But like, we want them from our men now too. Like, the girlfriend, it's that is a thing. But in terms of a partner, you don't have to be all the things. In fact, you probably have to provide less in terms of some material support. But I think just women now want more in terms of like emotional, intellectual, that kind of support.
What does that look like in practice?
I mean, for me personally, it means, I want so badly in my next long-term partnership just to be seen and to be heard and to be loved for who I am, not who you think I should be, who you want me to be. And that comes from a long-term relationship slash marriage and divorce where I was not seen and I was not heard and I was not valued like as an equal partner. And again, I think that's true for a lot of women that we have so many outlets and resources now from social media to books, podcasts, friends, Zoom calls, courses. It's like we're just, I think women just want that person that they can, back to what you started with, feel safe with, feel grounded with, feel like I'm not doing 95% of the literal physical or emotional work with. What does that look like for you? I mean, what do you think? What are you seeing with on the men's side of that?
Well, it's developing that emotional literacy. That's a lot of the work I'm doing. Not to use Brene Brown again, I don't want to just be one note on that, but I like that she says emotional literacy means being able to identify 30 emotions, and most of us can identify like three.
Yes.
So it's developing that I feel scared right now, or I feel sad, and being okay with talking to your partner about that without that fear of being judged. And you're right. I think you're absolutely right when you said vulnerability is strength, but there's this hump you have to get over in order to feel safe. There's that trust that has to build. I'm a decade in on my relationship, more than a decade in, and it took us a long time to develop the language to even talk emotionally open, where I could say, I feel like crap, but I don't know why, can you help me? And that took a long time and a lot of trust.
And how did you come to that? Did you do any therapy work yourself? Did you guys go together? Did you?
I did more somatic work, feeling it in the body, learning what different emotions feel like, learning what the emotion was telling me. But it was a result of going through the divorce. A divorce is such an emotional battleground. And I didn't know, I was very logical before this. So I was probably that guy who, what time are you home? Well, the soccer ball's pink. I was probably that guy before this. And then I got beat up emotionally going through the divorce. So I looked at myself and I went, where are the weak spots? I don't know what emotions are. So let's learn that. I knew I was going to repeat that divorce if I did not get my shit together emotionally.
There it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, I don't know. I don't know that a lot of men have that self reflection to go, there might have been part of this that was me. What can I learn about that? And I think also something that you said that made me think a little bit too is being able to say, I feel XYZ. Men from when you're boys are taught not to do that. You're literally socialized not to have feelings, not to be sad, not to be a sissy, not to say how you feel. So I think the process again is giving men the benefit of the doubt because women are socialized in different ways, but to go, there's a whole language and a whole life experience over here that you haven't been taught. If you want to connect with people on a deeper level, you got to learn the language or you have to learn the skills. And how do you do that? You can work with a coach, you can work with a therapist, you can read a book, you can, I mean, there's so many resources now that can help you do that. And if you know what the payoff is, like you had the wisdom to know, I don't want to do that again. That divorce thing.
What might help men listening to this is there's this idea that you get called forward. It's a rite of passage. And these rites of passage are very challenging and difficult things. And they're not always, quests. It might be something miserable like a divorce, What I believe is a divorce in today's society is that rite of passage encouraging you to go inward. So you go through it once, you make sure as shit not to go through it again. One of my favorite sayings is the longest journey is from the head to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
A divorce will take you into your heart, and your heart is the safe place. Your head is not safe. You're constantly calculating, recalculating, scanning. That's fear. When you're here, you're genuinely yourself. And that is safe. It's safe for you, it's safe for others, and it works in every position in life. It works in dating, it works in business, it works in, just relating with friends.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that, and I think the scanning for fear is not just for men. I mean, women do that too, post divorce or post breakup or just in life. I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want to get hurt again. What I don't want to go through that again. But it's like if you have yourself held up in your heart and in your head, that's the best insurance policy you have against going through another scenario like that. And I do like this like meme or quote I saw once. You're not starting over, you're starting from experience. And my God, if you haven't learned something or moved forward or evolved or grown from these hard experiences, man, like that is a hugely wasted opportunity. So yeah, I don't think I guess I'm sort of losing my train of thought, but it's is you. And the more that you have evolved and grown and done some of that self work, the more also that you'll recognize the mismatch in the other person sooner. So you're not 20 years in or 10 years in or 5 years in and going through a bad breakup again, would be my hope.
Let's say a man wants to show up differently today, and maybe make those steps towards being not perfect, but honest. What would you say to help him get to that place? What would that look like in practice?
What does he need to get honest about, do you think?
Who he is, probably. Let's say he goes on a date and he goes, I'm going to take you dancing to the best restaurant in town, try to impress you and, feel how big my muscles are and all of that. But let's say it turns out that realistically he's a homebody and isn't being genuine, but he's just trying to impress a girl.
Don't do that. I always think about dating. My One of my things I like to say is I believe in truth in advertising, right? So there was a time in my life where I, like to get well, I wasn't ever a huge dress up person, but I'm in my leggings and a t-shirt era a lot of the time. Or if I go out, I'm wearing basically what I have on now. Jeans, cute top, whatever. And so that's who I am. Like I just go as me. And it's not about impressing another person. You want to call in like your person. So if you're a like wear a football jersey and go to what's that place called? Buffalo Wild Wings? Like whatever.
Wild Wing, yeah.
That whatever that thing is, like that's not my person, but that's somebody's person, so be you. So you can call in your best fit person, and again, truth in advertising. Say it at the up front. Put on your dating profile. Tell your friends like I would love to find somebody who's mostly a homebody, likes to cook meals at home, maybe go antiquing or thrifting on the weekends, and take a trip once a year. I mean, this is how you find your match. It's like simple marketing, 101. It's like watch a marketing video about how people advertise their businesses. And like, that's what you want to do. You want to call in not every woman to like you. You want to call in like the right person to like you.
I've done a bit of marketing. I don't know if you can see that. I was at a retreat. It says marketing for hippies. One of the core tenets of the way we were taught to market is start with the deal breaker. So if you are, you want kids, you absolutely want kids, start with that. If
Always.
you
And I don't know why why people don't do this more. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, well, I think it's fear. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to be alone, and it's partially probably an ego thing. I can get any woman I want. Look at how big and strong I am. Or maybe the other side is I can attract any man I want. So they're not starting with the deal breaker, but if you don't want to if you don't want to end up divorced again or go through a miserable relationship, you have to start with that deal breaker and then go from there.
And like put it in question number three. So I was coaching a gal the other day who, I was like, well, tell me about, people you've dated or what's your dating history. But anyway, like just a year or two ago, she really wants kids and she's like mid to late 30s. And she had, within the last year or two, dated a guy for, I don't know, it was 3 months or 6 months, and then found out he didn't want kids. And I think it was on his profile and I think it was on her profile, but they didn't really. I go, sis, like, why? That's on you. Like, no offense, but like, that's on you. Like, well, and he's a really nice guy, and he brought me medicine when I was sick, and then I found I'm like, this is not your person. But you really just have to get clear on like, what kind of person is your person. I ask immediately. I don't know which way your listeners trend. I'm a very blue dot in a very red state, and so if you are a man who supports the current administration, I mean, that's like my second question I'm asking if it's not abundantly clear. I don't know if we would have somehow gotten through the filters and, matched on a dating app because, that tells me we don't now, this isn't again the 1980s. Like, we don't have different politics, we have different values. That's another thing that I want to talk about because you had mentioned how do people get honest about who they are and what they're looking for. And I am also a big proponent of shared values, not just shared interests. And I think it's easy to say, hey, you're staying a hippie, you're a hippie guy, you like hippie music, I like hippie music, maybe we're gonna be a match. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, we don't have to listen to the same music all the time. Like, I have headphones, you have headphones, I have podcasts, you have podcasts, I have a Spotify playlist, you have a Spotify playlist. What I want to know is, do we have shared values? Do we have shared integrity? Do we have shared commitments to like how we treat our kids, how we spend our money, so the interest, like, I mean, again, like, those are all, to me, it's like all surface level. And it's back to your thing about the heart. You got to get surfaces, surfaces, clothes, surfaces, where do you live? You got to go into the, what is it in the earth, like the molten core, and go, like, do we have values? Because the values are what you're going to rely on when the times do get hard, you know?
But given how superficial, I'm not on the dating apps, but given how superficial the dating apps seem to me as an outsider these days, how do you get to that molten core?
Here's what I would offer. A couple of things. Number one, dating apps are just a method of introduction. That's it. Can't be your only method of introduction. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am going to say it. I think dating apps are almost better than an introduction in many cases because if you said to me, Paige, I know a guy in Omaha, he's about your age, he likes kids, and his kid plays soccer, your kids play soccer, and his name's Mike. Okay, fine. Doesn't tell me much. If I meet a guy on a dating app, I can personally vet. Like, I get to be my own matchmaker. Like, I don't know why people think this is such a problem, right? Like, you have more information going into a date or a meetup than if somebody tapped you on the shoulder at the bar. So, number one, we have to just use dating apps as a, weeding people out mechanism to find a few people to put in the queue. And then I always think of early dating. I don't even call it like dating. It's just like meeting people. And I sort of say this jokingly, but I mean it as an approach that I think is very helpful. There's a three-step approach to dating. One, meet and see if you like them as a person. Do you just like them as a human? Are they an asshole to the wait staff? Do they show up on time? Or do they ghost you at the last minute? Like, if you don't even make the cut of like who I want in my orbit as like a nice human, we don't need to go any further. Step number two, is this somebody I want to be friends with? Man, woman, child, old, young, like, do I just enjoy you as a friend? Like, you get the vibe, we get starting to make some jokes where I went out with you for a couple hours and we watched a show and it was funny, or hey, there's an event coming up or a market or whatever. Friend. Step number three is, do I want to smush my face against your face? Like, do I want to put my body by your body? But we always start at number three. And then we go back, and like 6 weeks later, we're like, oh, that guy's kind of a jerk, or that lady sucks. And it's like, well, no kidding. Like, you didn't know them, you just had sex with them. So, I think, for example, well, what do you think about that idea?
I agree 100%. One of my coaches along the way said, or one of my teachers said that a romantic relationship is somebody who you're friends with, who you just happen to sleep with.
Yeah, and you make out once in a while. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And that's what it is with my partner. It's you're not sleeping together 99.9% of the time.
right?
You have to build that
You're
on
texting. You're like, what do we need at the grocery store? Like, what do we
exactly.
like?
We're coordinating what we're doing today, and when we have to make sure that we're kind to each other. Um, I mean, that's the big part of it is you're absolutely right. See if it's somebody that you even vibe with. If you not vibe, that's not deep enough. Can be friends with.
Yeah, do you like him as a person? Like, and I think, again, these are all Paige Dempsey's theories on like how to date better. In the olden days, again, it was like chemistry, 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 first date, first kiss, sleep with them on the first night. It's like that is so easy to come by that it would be like the last thing on my list. Do I want to, is this somebody after, that I want to make out with? Yes, let's keep going. But the slow and steady approach, I just call it like data gathering, like just meeting a person. I did the math once, and I mean people can do their own math, but if you're 40 and I'm 40 and we've been dating for 6 weeks or 12 weeks even, you've known that person like 0.00002% of your life. Like, you don't know this person. Like, you don't need to tell me they're amazing. You don't need to tell me they're perfect. You don't need to be infatuated with. You don't know them. You don't know them. So just like meet some nice people. Be a good person. That person may not be your match, but they might have a friend who is. You might have a friend who is. They might have a neighbor who is. Like, that's the start of the process. Is like, be a good human and go from there.
It really, really sounds like building a business in that you're networking. You're like, well, you might not be a client, but you might know somebody who might be a client. It's the same thing. And you're starting with that filtering of you're not trying to appeal to everybody. You're trying to appeal to someone who's a match for you.
Yes.
It's dating
It's
like
niching down.
business.
Yeah.
It's filtering. It's not opening yourself. It's that opposite.
But the opening is to be open to telling people that you're looking and that you're open for business. So, for example, I wrote a blog about this or did an email a while back. Women always say, where can I meet men? I mean, I see it every day on Facebook. Where can I go to meet men? I'm sick of the apps. Where can I meet men? And I'm like, well, number one, I think what they're really asking women is, where can men meet me? Because most of those women will go places that there are men and they don't go talk to them. So, first, I think women need to get over the fact that you're not, just because you're at a baseball game or a sports bar or a pickleball tournament, there's men everywhere, but you got to be willing to like introduce yourself to. Number one. Number two, the networking. I'm like, I think you need to just meet people because you know who knows men? People know men and women. So if the thing that you love to do is knitting, again, I'm coming from the woman's perspective, go join a knitting club because that old lady or that young lady, I mean, you don't know, like, you want to meet people who can know you in your best self way. And then if you be like, oh God, I'm single, you don't have to ask everybody you meet, I'm single, do you know anybody? But as like people get to know you, that's how you would get those good referrals, not just he's single and I'm single. The other little thing I will add, because I think I wrote my email on this week. I think women and men, you need to discern a little bit what you're looking for. And this goes back to the values beyond just, again, it's the levels, cute, good looking, fun, nice, kind. Even if you say, I'm looking for marriage, I'm looking for a long term relationship, you have to kind of get clear on how you will find. Now, this is like my business background coming in. How will you see evidence of that in the kind of person that you're looking for? So I think what a lot of people do is they start dating They're just dating with this sort of loose idea in the background of like the kind of person that they're looking for. But if you get really clear on how will I know it when I see it, it gets a lot easier to sort of weed in and weed out the people who are a good fit. Same girl I was coaching. Well, I want to, I'm looking for a guy. I want a long term relationship. I want a good partner. I want somebody who sees me as an equal. Well, how will we know, do they show up in that way? When you guys are making plans, does this guy say, hey, we picked my place last week. Where do you want to go this week? Are they flaking out on making commitments? Like, I kind of teed it up also like, are you looking for a Friday night date or are you looking for a partner? And I was trying to think of it as, again, just analogies. You got to think about the role that you're hiring for. Okay? Are you trying to hire somebody with promotion potential or are you just trying to hire somebody to like work the front desk at the gym? Work the front desk at the gym is one person. Work the front desk at the gym because I want to grow you into a manager and have you stay on at my company is may not be the same person.
How to know if you're looking for somebody, or how to know if they're meeting your requirements.
Do you know what you're looking for beyond the obvious? Nice, kind, funny, smart, and then how do you measure? I mean, the work that I've done in my other part of my life is outcomes and indicators and results and like what are the indicators, that this person is aligned with the kind of life that you want. Do they want the same kind of life that you do? And if they don't, that's like no hard feelings.
Yeah, please. The only thing is we've kind of tortured a analogy of business and dating, and the only thing I would ask is not to bring metrics into dating.
Yeah, well,
Um,
just the idea,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
not
But
metrics.
I think that's knowing who you are, and in order to know who you are, that lives in the heart. That doesn't live here. That doesn't live in the emotions. When you're dating, I imagine a lot of that is emotions as well. And you're like, oh man, he makes me feel good, or she's hot, whatever it might be. But that's not the heart. That's not seeing the truth of the matter. The heart is what's happening minus the emotions. So I do encourage you, if you're dating, the general you, not you necessarily, to get into the heart and scrape off the emotions the best you can.
Say, how do you mean? What do you mean by that? Tell me more about that.
Which part? Getting rid of the emotions?
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are guideposts, but they're not truth.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think we listen to, say, fear, we listen to anger or whatever it might be, but then we still act in a way that's in integrity with ourselves. So the heart is always in integrity. Emotions are not. Emotions typically come from one of our wounds. So usually in dating, we're attracted to somebody. Well, this might be getting off track, but we're attracted to somebody who shares our wounds, which is not truth. Being in the heart means you can see underneath that and find the truth of that. Is that clear?
Yeah, and I want to bridge that to a similar idea, which is a word that you said that I really hold to is staying in integrity with yourself. And I think when you do that, men or women, if you know that you're in integrity with yourself, it makes having hard conversations better, easier, somethinger. So, example, I'm trying to think if I have like a specific example. If I'm frustrated with you, our tendency is to go to our old patterns. You did this and I did that. But if you can like pause for a minute and go, I feel like this is out of integrity with like who I am or who I want to be or what we want this relationship to be. It's like, again, it's like a deeper level than just you shouldn't have done this or you should have done that. It's like, I've said a few things. Let me give you a sort of different example. I've posted a few things online that are in integrity with who I am in opposition to the current administration. I have some friends and family who don't like that I did that. Well, you shouldn't post that and da da da. I'm like, you know what? That's fine for you to think that, but I am in integrity with like who I am and what I stand for. And so I'm going to stay there. I'm not going to respond out of fear. I'm not going to respond out of, because somebody somewhere thinks I shouldn't have done that. And, again, it's like you just have to kind of keep coming back to yourself and not be damned the consequences. But, I've had relationships or friendships that get challenged. And if you come from the place of, again, I don't like the business speak, but it's, I think, a good framework. What's the result that I'm trying to co create with you? If the result is stay connected, stay communicative, improve our relationship, it's a different approach oftentimes than I want to prove you wrong or I want to be right.
Well,
You know what I mean?
that's the seeking for truth, right? And to boost what you were saying, I would rather have the whole world against me than to stand against my own soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I'm still learning to process, and I'm still learning what my own soul wants and needs. I think that's going to be something I figure out for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But to get to that place where you even start asking that question, I think is a long journey. You have to have that crack and that moment of, I'm not going to do this again. I went through a hard divorce once. I'm not going to do this again. So what is it going to take not to do it again? Then you start to do the work. And the work is every day. It's by inches, it's by millimeters, and it's a fight some days.
Yeah, and I think postscript to that idea. So, since most of the folks that you work with and talk to are men, who are getting divorced or coming out of a divorce, there is, again, anecdotally, but anecdotally being hundreds, if not thousands of people that I've seen, heard, talked to, witnessed, whatever, that, not trying to jump right into a new relationship until you've had time to like process and let settle the remnants of the old one. And so that means oftentimes the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 people you date may not be the forever and ever amen person. Like you got to get reconstituted and resituated and sort of find out what you like again at 50 that you didn't, that's different than when you were 20. And that's a learning experience, and it's just what I always say, it's just like part of the process. um, I will say I dated, I started dating while I was separated, but with the approval of my therapist. She said, Paige, because we already hadn't been separated that long. She goes, for most people, I would say it's too soon. She goes, you are so clear in your, I don't know if boundary was the word that she used, but I didn't still have one foot in the marriage other than legally. Now, looking back, there's a lot of shit that you have to go through to get divorced, even on a good day, right? Now, you know that, I know that. So, my blanket recommendation is, date if you want to, but these are not, you're going to be your long term relationships for men or women because your whole life is uprooted. But, particularly, not dating somebody who still has one foot in the other thing. Now I got one foot in the other thing because I got a co-parent, but not in a way. It's no, there's no overlap. There's no longing. There's no anything. So that's just another thing is to sort of be clear on. I guess what I was trying to say is there is huge benefit to suffering through the loneliness and coming out on the other side. It will just completely up level your choosing who you want to add to your life rather than just who you want to fill time in your life. Big difference.
I was speaking with someone yesterday. She's a business coach. She was giving me some free advice, and she said, why would you why would you rob somebody of the experience of that personal growth? And I think that dovetails nicely into what you just said. Do the hard stuff. Go through the loneliness, go through the awkward dates where you don't connect at all, where you want to leave after 2 minutes. I think that's the path to getting into the heart.
Mm-hmm. And you don't get to skip that part. I'm sorry, but you got to go through that part. We all had to go through that part. Like you can't
100%.
skip it. I don't know who you think you are, but you got to go through the shitty part.
Don't maybe the adjustment I would make is don't rob yourself of that experience of going through the hard part.
I think divorce itself is the hard part. I always describe it as, again, different for different people. I mean, I know some people have amicable divorces, but I don't know anybody who's had like, yeah, man, that was a great time divorce. So, in my divorce, I always describe it as like, in Shawshank Redemption when like Tim Robbins is like climbing through the shit tunnel, like the sewer. I'm like, you're just in the sewer. You're in the tunnel of shit. That's the divorce. But eventually you're going to come out the other side and you're going to gasp for air. And like, that's going to be a moment. But you're not ready yet. You got to get to like Zewataneu with the other guy and like sit under a tree in the sun. But that's all whole, like we're not there yet. And so sometimes you just got to be in that tunnel of shit. And when you are in the tunnel of shit, you are not in your best place to be like starting a new relationship and showing up as your best self. Like they're just, you're not, you're not.
Let's leave it with the way Rachel ended that New York Times article. And it was, we're not asking for performance, we're asking for presence. So my last question for me was, what does that mean to you?
That's a really that's solid. That's solid. I think it circles back to what we talked about before. I don't want performative flowers. I want presence. I want to be acknowledged. I want to be known, for who I am, and maybe I hate flowers, or whatever. So, being present is not just being in the room next to me. It's sort of like knowing me, looking eye to eye, and I really only want, and again, when I say I think this is hopefully a lot of women. I only really want one man to see me and know me and love me deeply. It's not anymore a case of like, can I get somebody to think I'm attractive or there's you can sleep with anybody. It's not that is so not hard to do. Yeah, men be willing to show up and be present and pay attention and turn off the bips and bleeps and silent your phone for a while and like engage in a friendship with somebody you want to like smush your face against later. Amazing.
I love it. Thanks. That's where we'll leave it. Paige, thanks for the clarity and the presence and your nuanced take.
Mm-hmm.
And for the experience of having to do the hard times so that you can speak about this plainly. Where can somebody find you if they're interested in working with you?
PaigeDempseyCoaching.com, and I'm on a lot of the socials, but just start there. And I do actually have a page just dedicated for the men. So if you are a man who wants some support from a obviously no nonsense, kind of funny, tell it like it is life coach, dating coach, I'd be happy to chat because I just think this is such important work, and there's so much value on the other side, and good men want good women want good men. So front of the line. Like I'd ask that always. You talked about asking the deal breakers. I'd often ask guys early when we're chatting, like, "Oh, have you gone to therapy?" If they said, "I'm doing that now," I'm like, front of the line. Like you get to go to the. Now we don't know yet if they're going to be a good match for me or if that's having any beneficial impacts or whatever. But yeah, I'd love to talk more if anybody wants to talk more. Thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you.